So we're going to be talking to you about incisions. Okay, so with a hair transplant, we normally think of it in three main parts. Okay, so we have harvesting, which is where we obtain the grafts from the donor area. The second is site making, which is making incisions into the scalp, and they become the home for the graft. And then the third and final part is implanting, so implanting the graft into those sites. So there's different ways of creating the sites, of making incisions, so either with blades or with needles. But the important parts of incision making or site making, as we usually call it, is the same whether you're using needles or blades. Some of the key things are that obviously we want to obtain the best end result, so that entails putting in as many grafts as you can, which therefore means making incisions as close and as tightly packed as physically possible. So we want our incisions to be almost touching, so really close, almost touching. We don't want them actually touching because then that creates one big hole. So we want them as tightly packed and as close as physically possible. So that's the first thing with incisions, is to make them as close as possible. Another consideration is the direction. So with any hairline, most of the hairlines we do are on the anterior part of the scalp. So what you'll find is the hairs that come out of the scalp from the very front in the midline come out pretty much straight out. As you come around to the sides, often the hairs come out slightly angulated to the sides here, but as you move further in, the hairs pretty much come out straight out. So what's important is when we do those incisions is that we look at what the surrounding hair is doing and then follow those hairs, because what you don't want is the new hairs coming out in one direction and your pre-existing hairs coming out in another direction. It should look seamless, it should all blend in. So one of the key aspects of doing incision making is looking at the pre-existing hair and following the same pattern when it comes to direction. So we want the hairs to come out of the scalp at a similar direction as the surrounding hair. Another thing is angulation. So whilst direction is talking about the direction at which the hair comes out, there is also angulation. So that is the angle at which the hair exits the scalp. So if this is the scalp, we normally try and get the hairs to, well, we always make incisions at around 40 degrees. Okay, so that's about 40 degrees. That's the normal angle at which hair normally exits the scalp, particularly in the anterior hairline. What you don't want is someone making incisions at 90-degree angles, so your hairs are popping straight out. Okay, so about 30 to 40 degrees is normally the correct angulation. So they're the three main things. We've got angulation, so that's the angle at which the hairs exit the scalp. We have direction, so the direction in which the hairs are growing, and we have sort of closeness, you could say, so the closeness of the incisions in order to obtain the most density. So that's the three key aspects of incision making, site making when it comes to a hair transplant.